You know the responsibility we have, we only have one job. That's to get the checks out the door each month at the right time and in the right amount. 68,000 of those on a monthly basis, plus to pay all your medical benefits each month and do that timely and correctly. That's our job. It takes 3,000 processes, mechanical processes to do that. And we have to keep those tweaked all the time because, as you know, things change all the time. So, but we certainly enjoy doing that for you. These benefits that we have, I'll have to forward the slides for you too, won't I? There we go. Okay. These benefits that we have take care of you from the time you retire until the end. Right now, we have a bunch of people that have lived longer than they're supposed to, according to the actuaries. And so we're sending out about 8,500 checks a month to people that aren't supposed to be here. Works out great. It really does. And we're sending out 38 checks a month to people that are over age 100. So, this is a trick. This is how much we send out each month. $217 million a month goes out, and $17 million a month goes out in medical benefits. A month. $217 million a month. It's like hitting the lottery and splitting it up every month, a $200 million lottery, isn't it? I know I tried to hit the lottery, and so far I'm still working. So, and most people that do play the lottery are still working. So, these benefits are great benefits, not only for you, but they also are great for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It supports the economy in a way that is stable, that can be depended on, and continually grow. Our benefits grow by about 8% a year. So that's 8% more each year we're putting into the Commonwealth of Kentucky. The monies you gave us on average 30 years ago, over your 30-year careers, we've invested that money, and 70% of your benefit that comes back to you is there because of the investment returns that we've gotten on that money. And as you'll be able to see here in a few minutes, our investment team with Mr. Gritton, Dr. Ben Littlepage on our investment committee, and others on the investment committee, we have outperformed the average pension plan since the Great Recession by over $5 billion. And there's a slide in just a minute that will show you that in detail. But $2 billion a year goes into Kentucky's economy from TRS. $2 billion a year goes into Kentucky's economy, keeping all of the city and county operations around the state working smoothly. Now, these are the things I'm going to hit in about the next 25 minutes. And our topics today are the Board of Trustees. We have 2 board members here today, but as you know, we have 7 of our board members that are elected, and the process right now for electing 2 of those is going on. Many of you have probably already voted electronically, but those that haven't will have the opportunity with a paper ballot as in normal times. We're also going to look at the funding and actuarial progress of the system. We're going to look at our investment performance, our retiree health insurance, and I'll give you an update on personalized medicine in that period of time. We've also got a new system and pathway for identifying you. It's called multi-factor authentication, and we'll talk about that a little bit this morning. And we'll also talk about some of the changes that are going to be happening with Pathway and with our website coming up in the future. And then we'll look at issues ahead. So with that, we'll just jump right into this. Our existing Board of Trustees, Brenda McGowan from Bowling Green is the chair of the board, does a wonderful job. John Boardman from Lexington is one of our investment folks on the board. He's vice chair. Bill Alverson from Paris, he's finishing up his term on the board, and his position is up for election, as you'll see here in a minute. Allison Ball, State Treasurer, a very active board member, does a great job for the Commonwealth and on our board, primarily in the areas of trustee responsibilities and things. She's done some wonderful things for us there. Frank Colecchia from Louisville is one of our investment experts that is on the board. Dr. Jason Glass, that will be speaking with me just a little bit later this morning. He's on our board of trustees by reason of his position as Education Commissioner. Mr. Gritton and Dr. Littlepage, you've already met this morning. They're on our board and both do a great job. Laura Schneider from Northern Kentucky, a great teacher, and she does a wonderful job both coming to board meetings and keeping up with her classroom activities, as does Josh Underwood and Allie Wright. Allie Wright is, her position is up for re-election, and as you'll see in a minute, she's a former chair of the Board of Trustees. Now, the board election, as I said, the time to vote electronically has already passed. That was up through April 16th. So if you haven't voted electronically, you'll be getting a paper ballot and will be able to vote for these candidates. Allie Wright is on the ballot along with Aletha Fields for the active teacher trustee. And in the lay trustee, we have Paul Bruce Jr. from here in Louisville that has a deep background in finance. And we also have Thomas Hatton, which is he's a banker from Frankfurt that is also running for that lay trustee position, formerly held by by Bill Alberson. Full funding for TRS. The budget year was 2022. This year, they had a correction to the budget. Last year, we received a full payoff of liabilities for COLAs and minimum benefit adjustments and sick leave that they had heretofore amortized and owed the system about $420 million. Well, in the budget, they took monies out of the surplus and paid off those state liabilities last year, 2022. Great thing, absolutely a great thing, yes. And doing so, they also overpaid us by about $78 million on the sick leave side. So they've reduced that out of the budget this year. So that's all is well. But we've been receiving full funding now for 8 years. 8 years of full funding. And in the history of the pension plan, we've never been in better shape as far as funding goes. We have got the funding coming in to pay off the unfunded liability of the pension plan, and we'll do that over the next 23 years. And the medical insurance fund, we've got it through shared responsibility. That will be fully funded in about 5 years. And we just started that in 2010, so we are in great shape there. Here's our funded ratio as of now, 58.8% in the retirement trust. And as I said, this is one of those things that we're gradually working this down, but we're about to hit a spot there of all of this funding coming in routinely now. We're about to hit a spot where we're going to start paying that off very quickly. And as you can tell, being able to pay off that $41 billion in liabilities, of which $17 billion is currently unfunded, that $17 billion will be coming in over the next through both investments and in the state's contributions over the next 23 years. This graph shows explicitly what happens at a 7.1% investment return, and it shows that in 2045 we'll be fully funded with no unfunded liability. And as Golden said earlier, with TRS-4 that we've just brought into for new teachers starting January 1 of last year, TRS-4 will have no unfunded liability for the state. So once the state gets this paid off, you can see in the bottom of the slide there, that green line, in 2047, their contributions to the system will drop dramatically by over $2 billion a year, simply because we've got all the unfunded liabilities paid off. And now they'll just have to contribute the 10% of teacher salaries on a monthly basis to keep this going forward. And we still have the defined benefit plan in TRS-4, and we also have a supplemental benefit there in TRS-4. Recently, as I said earlier, Bo works with the Public Pension Oversight Board, and the Public Pension Oversight Board hired another actuary to look at all the systems, to do a complete replication of the work our actuary is doing, just to be sure that our actuaries were doing the jobs they were supposed to do. We do that too. Every 10 years, the Board of Trustees has an actuarial audit done of our actuaries. And we've known all along that our actuaries are doing a good job. Well, in this actuarial audit that Milliman did, they confirmed that. Of all the pension plans in the state and all the actuaries that are used, ours won. Ours won the competition. It wasn't a competition, but we won. We ended up, as you'll see on this slide, we ended up with Milliman's calculations versus CAD-MAC, which is our actuary, CAD-MAC's calculations, we ended up right on top of one another. It wouldn't have mattered which actuary you used, you were going to get the same answer. The exact same answer. And we're talking about taking every individual in the plan, all 140,000 of us that are in this plan, projecting what benefits we're going to be drawing, how long we're all going to live, how much we're going to pay out over the next 60, 65 years, and bringing all of that back into today's dollars by discounting a 7.1%. And in doing that, their actuaries came up with virtually the same thing as our actuaries did by doing it all independently. So it was a great job that our actuaries do, a great job our Board of Trustees does in making sure the actuary is on point. And as you can see, the Public Pension Oversight Board now knows that our actuaries are solid. So, very good. Our investment performance. It amazes me how well we do in investments by just doing it the same way every day and being constant and knowing we have the knowledge that when we wake up to invest today that we're 35 years old, so we have a little bit of knowledge, looking 20 years into the future, and we know we have time. Every day we can invest that way. Investing individually, you have to take into account how much gray hair you've got, or no hair, and you've got to take all of that into account when you invest and what you invest in, what your asset allocation is. At TRS, our asset allocation doesn't change because we know that collectively with our whole population, we're 35 years old. And that's how we can invest and get the investment performance that we do. And we have a stable board of trustees. Our board of trustees is the most important element of your pension plan. The most important element of your pension plan is our board of trustees. It's not me, it's not Bo, it's not this, it's your board of trustees. Because they give us the direction to go, and we know who we work for. We know what we need to do. Our board of trustees make sure of that. And you having control of the board of trustees through your election process is the most important thing you do for your plan. What you're doing here today is extremely important, and I don't want to undercut that in any way, because what you're doing here today and what you do every day, watching this plan, making sure it's working like you want it to work, is important. That is extremely important, and your board of trustees makes sure that happens. So that's why I say the board of trustees is the secret sauce that we have that many other pension plans in the nation don't have. Many other pension plans have boards of trustees that are mostly political. And therefore you end up with turnover in their leadership. You end up with turnover on the board because politics changes every 3-4 years. So you end up with a lot of turnover. Your board doesn't have that. We don't have that as a staff. And we know what the purpose of being there is, to do things right and to keep doing them right every day. In doing that, in our investment process, as I said, over the average pension plan, we've outperformed the average pension plan since the Great Recession to $5 billion. $5 billion. We have $22 billion in assets in the pension trust right now. $5 billion of those came from our outperformance. And it goes back to that board of trustees, how important that is. That's why the election was the number one thing here whenever we were talking today. As I said earlier, Treasurer Ball is deeply involved in the board and in fiduciary duty. One of the things that came out of this session was a furtherance of how, and really codifying what this board has always done. And that is put your interests first and to not let environmental, social, or governance issues, ESG issues, dictate how we invest. We invest based on pecuniary interests and based on those objectives. Also, she had added to the law this year that political decisions, investing based on political decisions, is not what our trustees or not what we can do. So that was an important thing to add to it. Now, I'm going to jump ahead a slide or two about shared responsibility. We've already talked about this some. It's been mentioned a couple of times. But we're at 64% funded, and we've just been really fully funded in this since 2017. That's when we had a 6-year phase-in of contributions. But you can see that we're 64% funded, well on the way to having this fully funded in another 5 years. This is how the funding of shared responsibility has changed over the years from 2006. The gray line there is the money the state was required to put in, and that was growing. It was going to go above $200 million a year just to fund retiree health care. Today, the state is on a level plane of putting in about $80 million. So they've dropped from $180 million to $80 million since 2010, since shared responsibility has come in. And teachers and retirees, you can see now, are putting the monies in here and getting a pre-funded benefit. This benefit was not subject to the inviolable contract, therefore it could go away. This has stopped that from happening. This benefit was going away if we didn't do something. You stepped up, and now we have a plan that's going to be fully funded here in about another 5 years. Now, the Know Your Rights Coalition that we formed with UK and EKU, U of L, and Transylvania University back in 2012. Today we have 16 pharmacists on staff working daily, making calls, outgoing calls, and answering inbound calls. And their calls are split about 50-50. About half of them are outbound and half of them are inbound. Those pharmacists help you get the right medicine and help you understand the medicines you're taking. Feel free to call them. They love talking with you. And so give those guys a call. And in addition, since 2017, we've had the personalized medicine that we've talked about many times here with you before. That is now going, we're now being recognized in many, many places, more and more so daily. Jane just got back from a conference in Florida. She's got another conference to go to coming up, a medical conference where it's just nothing but doctors and Jane. So we'll get them straightened out, won't we? But our personalized medicine, this is the results that was written up in a white paper that's being touted around the United States by many people in the medical profession. And there's an organization called Get the Medicine, Get Your Medications Right. They've been using this document to tout the advantages of personalized medicine. In the 10,000 people that have so far of you that have volunteered for this, 66% have needed to change your prescription out of those 10,000 because genetically the drug you were taking wasn't the proper drug for you for your condition. We've had a 15% reduction in inpatient visits in this group compared to a control group of you that did not get your DNA tested. So we've had a 15% reduction in inpatient visits, 7% reduction in emergency room visits, and we've saved $37 million into your medical trust for those 10,000 people that have done this over a 32-month period. So you can see this helps you and it helps your financial condition of your medical trust. But that's rolling out, multi-factor authentication. And if you go by our booth, you'll see that there's a handout there. All of you that are using Pathway will need to re-register with this multi-factor authentication. And it's just like you have with your financial institutions, other financial institutions, and probably that you have with your Amazon account and other accounts that you have, is that you'll have the ability to either email or a phone call or a text to be able to verify that it's really you that's on your account. Just another layer of protection that we have coming into that. Also, we're working on the access to Pathway. That's the multi-factor authentication. We're also working on the web page that surrounds that incorporates Pathway. And we're starting on the project there, so you'll be seeing a redesign in that over the coming year in our web page, and we'll make it even more user-friendly than the current edition that we have. The multi-factor authentication, we'll slip past that slide because we've just talked about it. And I'm going to jump to this slide right here. Emails that come from us. Emails that come from us, just to make sure it's us. It's do not reply at trs.ky.gov. And if you get an email that's got that URL, I think it's called a URL, isn't it, Greg? Address. There we go. It's got that address, you will know that it's safe to open. Other emails may be safe to open, they may not be safe to open, so beware of those. And let me jump back there. Also, we found out that there's a number of people out there that want to help you. I was contacted by people that want to help me with my health care. And they know a lot about that sort of thing. And I've been contacted by people that want to help me with my retirement planning. And some of them want to help you understand TRS and how to use TRS better than you can get with just going to TRS. So be careful of those. And those kind of solicitations aren't coming from us. We don't solicit that sort of thing. But if you've got any questions about those, call our call center. If you get something that you don't recognize, call our call center to see if we've sent it to you. Because we don't want you opening emails and getting your computer infected, or get a hold of someone that's a nice, I would say slick talking salesman, but that's prejudicial. And that's why I won't say that. And here's, speaking of slick talking salesmen, watch out for old quarterbacks and those guys that want you to drop your Kentucky employees, your Medicare eligible health plan, and go with their Medicare plan. Because once you get off our plan, you're in a bit of a pickle. So just tell them no. TRS account types, we'll run past this. TRS-4 we've already talked about. I do want to talk just a minute about a piece of legislation that was passed in not this session, but the last session, that changed our return to work rules for a 2-year period only. And it allows active teachers to retire and return within 1 month. The only problem is that you have problems with the IRS if you do that. Because if you're under age 59 and a half and you return in 1 month back to your same job doing the same thing that you did, the IRS says or may say that you don't have a valid retirement, and then you end up having to pay that 10% penalty, and you end up having to pay income tax on that too, plus the 10% penalty. And it's not just for 1 year, it's until you reach age 59 and a half. So we've had a few people, about 10 or 11, that fell into that crack, that retired like at age 50, 51 to come back and get their check and their pension. And they've now got that 10% penalty, or looking at that until they turn 59 and a half. So it's be sure that you talk, if you're going to retire and return to work, be sure you talk with our counselors before you do that. Now, we are back, and I do want to just throw a word out there about the teacher shortage that is occurring and has occurred in Kentucky and all other states since the pandemic hit. It's not caused by retirements. You can see the chart here that our retirements are relatively constant over those years. So we haven't seen a spike in retirements that would cause a teacher shortage. But we are having a lack of candidates that go into education on the front end. So we need to get more teachers lined up for that. And if any of you would like to help out in this interim until we get that imbalance repaired, I'm sure they would welcome you with open arms to come back to your district or back to a new district and help them out with substitute teaching until we get through this little shortage that we've got now. You know, the shortage is caused primarily by teacher pay. If we get our teacher pay up, the shortage will work its way out, but it's still going to take a while for them to do that, even with new teacher pay. But we have to get new candidates interested in teaching and then pay them well in order to keep them there. Back to where we started. And with this, I think I have brought us back to the point that maybe I can take a question or two before I need to turn this over to our next speaker. So are there any questions out? Yes, ma'am.
I've recently gone back and started studying. And I've also started drinking again.
Well, there's two good things that are coming out there. Yes.
I don't understand that. Can you explain that for us again, please?
Yes, ma'am. Your contributions will still come out of your check, and you are now in a second retirement account. And if you get vested in that with 5 years of service, you'll have a second benefit coming.
How many days?
They'll come, all the rest of those checks will come all the rest of the days you've got. No, I'm just kidding. How many days is 5 years? 5 years to vest in the new benefit.
I have to work for 5 more years and then I get another retirement?
Yes, ma'am. 5 years of service credit. Yes, ma'am. KRTA website, yes. Yes, will be. Well, these slides are hot off the press. But they'll be there. They'll be on the website, KRTA's website. Great question, by the way. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
How many days do you have to serve in order to get a year?
185.
So my 2 days here and there, will it amount up?
It amounts up.
It all adds up. It does. It all adds up. But if you don't get to 5 years, as the lady in the back that drinks isn't going to make it. But, if you don't get to 5 years, you get your contributions refunded. So now, and it's tax sheltered now too, as when the money comes in.
Gary, is there a plan or a move that we will rescind Tier 4 in the future?
A plan to rescind Tier 4?
Yes, go back like 1, 2, and 3 tiers.
That is up to the legislature. All of this came through the legislative process, and that would be up to the legislature in the future. Those are the folks that make those rules. So if that happens, it will be a legislative process. Yes. Great question. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
I've been retired for many years, and I have been studying for many years, and I do not know what it calls if I have that 5 years up or not. Because I've been long-term stuff, like credit and gas, and filled in for one semester, a teacher, walk off the job for a second.
That's long term. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Call our call center. Anyone that answers the phone there will be able to look at your account and give you an up-to-date information on your account. Plus, if you log into Pathway, it'll be in there also.
I will say that my serve money goes into a separate bank account, and I call it my mad money. When I go shopping, that's when I go to eat, that's when I do it. I'm enjoying it.
Wonderful. Great testimonial. And we've got applications out in the lobby here for anyone that wants to go help Harbin County or any other county. No, seriously, we do have a problem with getting enough qualified people in the classroom. So